Welcome to Nurture Small Business Podcast, a show that provides small business owners with practical experience-based insights and tangible solutions. I'm your host, Denise Cagan. My experience spans 25 years of business ownership and 10 years of manufacturing. Now, today, I want to talk about gardening. What does this have to do with business? Hang tight. You'll find out, I promise. And I realized that you may have heard the nurture your garden, nurture your business analogies before. Today's conversation is not that, okay? Promise you, I have something new and different to share with you. And it's based on what occurred in my garden this morning, actually. It brought into sharp focus a conversation that I have been having with myself. And yes, I do talk to myself, as well as my team, that I want to share with you. So the lesson is simple. Curiosity helps move us beyond the first explanation, uncover the real problems, and choose a response that actually fits the situation. So about my garden, it is small and modest. It has one mound of zucchini, one mound of yellow squash, another of cucumbers, plus a couple of zinnias, basil, and a few different varieties of tomatoes because, well, I really like tomatoes, and one green pepper plant. And I'm relatively new to gardening. I started this about 3 years ago, and I'm still learning. This morning, I went outside, and I was determined to get rid of those pesky bugs that have been showing up in my garden. And I had purchased an app about a month ago that is supposed to identify plants as well as diagnose the problems that might be occurring with the plants. And I'm sure you guys have seen the ads for this, but the specific app told me that the eggs that I had photographed were aphids. They looked like tiny seeds to me, bug seeds. That's kind of what I call them typically. But the diagnosis was wrong. They were not aphids. They were squash bug eggs. Worse yet, I also had squash vine borers that the app didn't diagnose despite the droopy leaves. And honestly, I attributed the droopy leaves to the moles, which was year one lesson for gardening. I thought the moles had disrupted the roots. That's another story for another time. So here's where the garden connects to the business. When a problem appears, if it's not right there slapping you in the face, then your next natural step is to identify it and then implement a solution. So the app offers several different remedies, mostly non-chemical options, along with a few chemical ones. I chose insecticidal soap because, well, that tends to be my go-to for treating garden pests, and I like the not chemical option. I applied it, but the plants kept getting sicker. Over the next few days, weeks, I was watching them. They became droopy. They started falling over. Fruit would begin to form, and then it stopped growing. And this prompted me to look a little bit more closely. I noticed yellow squishy material inside the stems, and in some instances, coming out of the stems. And I went ahead and turned to an AI tool. I believe it was Gemini. I searched online and what could cause that type of damage. The answer? Squash vine borers. And that yellow stuff on the outside is the larva's poop. Ew, gross. So if you don't know how squash vine borers work, they lay an egg near the base of the vine, very close to the soil level. And when it hatches into a larva, which goes immediately into the stem of the squash. It is not all squash are susceptible to it. Most of the winter varieties have hardier stems, so they can't bore in there. But the summer varieties tend to be susceptible to it. So once I understood that I had two problems, not just one, and the app only identified something that was actually incorrect, that they were plants, bug seeds, as I call them. I also went ahead and used Gemini to help me diagnose those seeds, since I was not having a lot of confidence in the app at that point. The query, once I put in the description, identified them as squash bugs. And that meant that the original diagnosis I was given was incorrect. Part of the treatment may have helped with the insecticidal soap, but it did not address the full problem. And it didn't actually kill the numerous eggs on the leaves as the app suggested it would. So the same thing happens in business. Okay. And yes, I could tell you all sorts of stories of what I did and how to control it, which I haven't quite yet. Though I want to go ahead and switch here very clearly to business and what this has to do with business. When you have a problem, you identify it, you apply a solution, and you expect it to work. Sometimes it does not. Maybe it's because you solved only the problem you could see, or your assessment of the problem was made without having complete knowledge. The adage about measure twice, cut once applies here. If I had researched further instead of relying solely on an app, a new one, by the way, I would have discovered two things sooner. I would have first discovered that those bug seeds, I may never stop calling them that, were squash bugs, not aphids. Second, the drooping leaves were not caused by the squash bugs or my mole friends. They were caused by the squash vine borers hidden inside the stems. The truth is, I had seen the squash vine borer moth in the garden, and I thought, you're pretty, I'll leave you alone. You'll pollinate something. Nope. I did not know what I did not know. And if I had, I would have caught it and eliminated the pest before it laid eggs on my plants. Business owners face the exact same challenge. Many parts of your business fall outside of your expertise or simply don't cross your desk every day. You're busy, and once your business starts growing, realistically, you should not be touching everything in the business unless you want to create a substantial bottleneck. Asking questions, staying curious, digging deeper are often what brings clarity when you start losing, I'm going to use the word control, but losing the control of having the intimate knowledge of everything in your business. The garden lesson leads to a broader point, and that is that curiosity is a practical business skill. It's a form of troubleshooting in a way to understand what's really happening. It can also demonstrate emotional intelligence. So rather than hearing about a scenario, having it be described to you and making a snap judgment, as I have done many times, you can pause and ask, what might I be missing? This is a key element of developing your own emotional intelligence. Ideally, you as a leader will mature as your business matures. So curiosity helps that happen because it keeps you focused on understanding the situation before deciding what that situation actually means. One of my recent episodes about hiring getting beneath surface level answers is an example of that same curiosity. And we'll go ahead and put that link in the show notes. So open-ended questions are just as useful in everyday life. An example, a personal anecdote. One afternoon, my 6-year-old granddaughter was visiting. I made lunch after she said she was hungry. I swear the child is hungry all the time. And she generally has a good appetite. And then out of nowhere, she said, I want to lie down, Nani. I asked her, why? I thought you were hungry. She started crying and said, I just want to lie down. Can I take a nap? Then came the follow-up request, which was, oh, can I also look at TV or play a game while I'm resting? And my first reaction was, wait a minute. If she truly felt sick or tired or just needed a rest, she absolutely could lie down, and without the electronics. Screen time is not a guarantee for laying down and resting. As a matter of fact, it kind of disrupts it. So I had already started thinking in, parental problem solving mode, and I had to take a step back because that same principle of being curious and curiosity applied well here. What I did actually was I made an assumption that she was just trying to play on the tablet. And so I started asking her some questions. Hey, kiddo, a minute ago, you said you were hungry. Are you still hungry? Yes. You also said you were tired and didn't feel well. Which is stronger? And of course, you can use this with employees too. This is just wording that works for a 6-year-old. She said, hungry. She was still crying, so I asked her to use her words and tell me what was going on. And honestly, adults can struggle with this too, articulating what they're thinking in a way that makes sense. Um, they bring their own people, they're people, they bring their own beliefs, experiences, and concerns into every conversation they have. And they may hesitate to speak because they fear looking uninformed, upsetting you, or maybe even appearing less capable. I have seen team members power through problems without asking questions because they feel like asking the question makes them feel exposed. Imagine being on screen with your boss just in your bath towel. That's the feeling it evokes. And that doesn't mean they're less capable, and perception still often shapes their behavior. So, before returning to the workplace connection, let me finish telling you the story with my granddaughter. Eventually, she explained that her teeth were hurting when she was biting into the food. And sure enough, her two bottom teeth were loose. She's 6 years old. That's a common problem. And once I understood the problem, I could approach it with clarity and an appropriate solution. I cut her food into smaller pieces so she didn't have to take the pressure in the biting to separate the food. And she ate everything. Afterward, we rested and then we played video games. So we did all of it. But after I figured out what the problem was and got her to start articulating it. And like I said, at first I had just assumed that she was being a little bit of a difficult 6 year old, which they can do sometimes, and that she wanted the video game more than lunch. And that wasn't really the case. So at this point, it brings us back to the conversation about the employees and the perceptions that they may carry into a conversation. We never fully know what another person is thinking. One college exercise I think it was a psychology class, uh, this exercise stayed with me for years and years. And the professor presented a box that was wrapped up in, I think they used probably paper bag. And they asked us, what's inside? Everybody got to guess. We could touch it, we could hold it, shake it, smell it, but we could not open or dismantle it. We could touch it and hold it, shake it, smell it, but we could not open or dismantle it. Everyone had to guess what was inside. I guessed air. It seemed logical to me. And the professor basically told all of us that, hey, none of you are right, at least not with irrefutable proof. Each of you is making an assumption only. The reality is you actually don't know what's in the box. So when you make assumptions about what's in other people's minds, that is really kind of what you're doing. You don't know what's in there. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know their learned perceptions or misconceptions even. Their mind is the black box. And we often make assumptions or judgments about others while they are making them about us, because that's the basic nature of how human beings think. And I know you might be thinking, I don't assume or make judgments about anyone or anything. And I'd like to refute that. The brain is naturally hardwired to process information quickly and fill in the gaps by making logical assumptions or judging a situation based on the sensory cues it has available. That's not me making up stuff, it's science. And this happens so quickly that we don't even realize that we're making these assumptions and judgments. The reality is we need to do that to survive in life. Is that car going too fast for me to make this turn? That is not something that you say out loud. Your brain fills in the information with the information it has visually or through sound, and informs us with a decision intended to keep us safe in a split second. Prehistoric man, that was their safety mechanism. When faced with something new, would assess, is this something that will harm me or eat me? Or can I use it? And this happens so super fast. It's our brain computer processing them. And that's how they say stayed alive. You heard the saying survival of the fittest. It was the fittest brain, mostly. Okay. And yeah, physique and physical came into that too. But the brain, if the brain couldn't assess if a situation was safe, that was the first hurdle that they need to make. So just know it's not you, it's not an issue. We just are not able to turn this off. It happens. What you can do, however, is you are 100% able to respond differently. And this is largely what that conversation is all about. Using your curiosity to step back or step beyond the quick assessment that your brain is giving you and start asking the questions so that you can strengthen your understanding of a situation or scenario. Now, we already noted that sometimes employees are concerned about whether their response, their input, or their questions might make them look dumb or incapable. And this is when it's really important to bring that to the forefront and make it normal. So normalize that asking questions, seeking clarity, and admitting that you don't know everything is part of the process. Create an environment where employees know their input, thoughts, and ideas are valued. And even when the company doesn't implement suggestions exactly as offered, that doesn't diminish the value of the employee's contribution. I know for business owners and CEOs, they are often quick to think of a solution. When determining if you should take your solution or the suggestion of an employee, I challenge you to consider both the strength of the idea and the commitment behind it. It's a quick feasibility analysis that might help you understand the value of implementing something on the surface may have a lower success rate. So let me explain that just a little bit further. To do this quick evaluation, let's suppose I am certain my idea to solve this problem will work, 100% certain. And an employee gives me an idea, which is I'm only feeling 75% confident that it will succeed. And yes, we're talking feelings, so it is somewhat subjective. There's a lot of data you could put into your decision making, so it doesn't have to be subjective. For this example I'm giving, it sounds very subjective, but follow me here. So the obvious choice in this scenario seems to be my idea. Maybe, maybe not. If the employee must implement or be a key person in the implementation of that idea, what is their level of investment? Because that matters. And this is where you start getting interestingly different numbers. So say, for instance, the idea that I know 100% will work and they're only 50% invested in the idea for whatever reason, that means your 100% success rate just dropped to 50%. Now, let's say the idea they propose, which has a 75% success rate in your mind or based on your data, yet they're 100% invested in making that solution work. They are fully committed. You still have a 75%. Now, you're looking at these two options and you have one that's at 50% and one's at 75%. Now, which one are you going to take? 75% makes a lot more sense in this scenario. So it's really important to understand that who are your key people that need to work on this process and what is their investment in it. That calculation can show gaps in reasoning that on the surface seem sound. And it is a significant mind shift, I promise you. It's difficult for business owners who are accustomed to giving swift and clear direction. That is me. After all, your business is your baby. You know, many business owners have literally birthed and nurtured their business through infancy to growth to maturity and all sorts of cycles in between. We know that often there's things that we know tried and true that will work and want to move straight to execution. Though as your company grows, you actually have people typically coming in and helping you. It is rare that we have a true solopreneur. We have a couple of clients that we consider solopreneurs, but the reality is they are outsourcing work to us. They have another company that does something else. They are not true solopreneurs, as in they do everything. So you have other people touching things in your company. And you need to become more accustomed to allowing others to help drive the company while you take on the role of the navigator. So the outcome of choosing an employee's approach instead of yours could create a short-term dip in efficiency. I totally acknowledge that. But it communicates something important. It is safe to contribute ideas here. That's big. That's huge. And that in turn creates a more collaborative and innovative team. There are numerous rewards to creating that type of culture. I would say I still have a lot of room to improve here. Employees often see possibilities that leaders do not, that I do not, because, well, they're closer to the work. There's going to be times where a specific approach is necessary. And when that happens, explain the background and the reasoning rather than simply issuing a directive. Understanding the why builds trust and makes people more willing to support the decision when you are in decision and implementation mode and like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Every corporate training that I've attended, there has always been a group exercise. And this is the same principle behind them directing you to build consensus in the group environment. Because if the team can get on the same page on a solution, then the likelihood of it being implemented correctly and successfully increases. Same concept. So when people help shape the ideas, they are invested. And now the work and the outcome becomes important to them. It's not a new concept. It's just applying it consistently requires intention and the willingness to step back and admit you might have it wrong, or more importantly, they might have a better idea. So the next time a problem seems obvious, pause before acting, ask more questions, and look beneath what's visible. Whether you're tending a garden, helping a 6-year-old, or leading a team, curiosity might reveal that the real problem and the right solution to the real problem is different than what you first assumed. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to hearing your comments. And if you have other episode suggestions, please also reach out to me. My information is in the show notes.